morning, Craig. Thank you again, Craig, for joining us on the wonderful episode of the Believe You Don't podcast. We're back again to do part 2 of the Final Fantasy 16 review. Hopefully we can get them all. We'll try to finish part 2 up today. If not, it'll be 3, whatever. And then I'll maybe release them like not at once. Maybe. We'll see. But, So once again, Jordan is here to continue the journey of this wonderful game with me.
Absolutely.
How are you doing?
I'm doing okay.
That's good. It's better than bad.
True.
We soldier on. So, last part we left off by talking about the icons. Each one of them and just kind of the history of it in Final Fantasy. So today, or this part, we're going to start off with the whole gear and the finding of the items in the world. Our thoughts on that. I'll just go ahead and start off by saying, at least in the base game, the gear, it felt like everything that you tried to buy was just not worth it. But when you beat maybe a boss, or if you found like one of the secret items in the world, they were much better. Which is fine, I guess. But when it gets to New Game Plus, the gear is it's a little bit more in depth because you get to combine them. And it definitely felt like for me when you were just like killing monsters and shit in the world and you just got random items from them, they were just completely useless. Until New Game Plus, when you got to combine them to do they turned into like from blues to epics and then to yellows. I guess we can consider them legendaries. So that was good because you just had an overabundance amount of just random things in your inventory. I never sold I sold a few items, but it didn't feel like you necessarily had to.
No, I only ever really sold like valuable stuff, and that's about it.
Yeah. The Gil Part 2, that's what they call their currency in most Final Fantasy games. It wasn't hard to collect. I never felt I never went out and at any point of this game, I never farmed either Gil or experience. So that has been one of the wonderful things about this game. But I know that some of the most expensive items in the game is literally the extra accessories that you put on to most of your abilities and or the music items. So
Yep.
I guess there's not really a necessity to even farm Gil. So what is your thoughts on the whole gearing system?
So I haven't experienced it in New Game Plus, so I don't know how much more expansive it gets. I've seen like a couple of things about how combining them, like combining the accessories and whatnot. So I can't really comment on that. So I can only really comment on the base game for myself. And the gearing felt like kind of an afterthought for the most part to me. It's like the gearing is just kind of like, I mean, at least for like the top half, like when it comes to the weapon, the bracer and the belt, it's just equip the better thing you find or the better thing you craft after clearing a certain part of the game, right? There's not really anything in regards to that. The accessories can get pretty crafty, I guess, depending on your build. I mean, I wound up sticking with the same, like once I got an accessory for it was the Berserker ring, where every time you dodge, you get a damage bonus. I never took that off for the rest of the game. And that I got that. You get that pretty early, don't you? I think that's like one of the first things you get when you hit like the like after you see Ultima for the very first time. I think you get that shortly after doing that. So I never wound up taking that off. The only time I really interchange things is when I swap my build around to use Rama's lightning rod ability, which we'll get into later. But so I guess the accessories have some amount of customizing to them, which is fine. But it would have been nice if they would have applied that to the weapon, the belt, and the bracers instead of just making those basically stat sticks.
Yeah, because it definitely just felt like, at least for besides the accessories, you just put on whatever gave you the most, which is fine in some aspects. But I just feel like maybe some of them should have just given some extra power, at least for the sword. Obviously, it's been a staple for Final Fantasy games to change the look whenever you change out your weapon.
Yeah.
Were they one of the first games to do that? Or at least RPG wise?
Not sure. I mean, I know it happened in Chrono Trigger, but I mean, it was also like pixels, right? Like I know, like when you got like Chrono's rainbow sword, his best weapon at the end. I mean, it would actually be like a rainbow sword.
Yeah.
So
maybe it just felt like that to me. So
yeah, I'm not 100% certain if they were the first.
Yeah. But yeah, I think the New Game Plus version it does feel like some of the things actually matter, and you should collect more of them, which is good. So, and obviously, you get the weapon in New Game Plus. So, did you get the what is it, Goddard Demerang weapon?
The best weapon in the base game. Yeah.
Okay, you got that, and then did you get all the extra items in the world?
Elaborate a bit.
So like the Genji gloves.
Oh yeah.
Oh no, Genji gloves were from the what's the
renown system?
Yes, the renown system. Not the Genji glove, but the Masamune. Masamune. And Excalibur?
Yeah. Yeah, okay. I wound up getting those, but by the time I found them, I had already had a better weapon, so I wasn't really able to take advantage of them.
Yeah, those, I don't know, it's that, like, in previous Final Fantasy games, it felt like those weapons you found in a secret dungeon. I think the Masamune was just behind a little slit in the wall, and it's also beside one of the broken pillar things too. But I don't know. It just those type didn't feel as Final Fantasy to me. So, so that kind of goes in the finding items in the world and whatnot. So moving on to the abilities. So obviously each icon came with their own abilities. You with the Phoenix, obviously you had it at the beginning. Garuda's, Ifrit, and all them's. Who's? I guess we don't have one on. Okay, so when you finally got everyone's icon abilities, who did you stick with?
So I think at the end of my game, I was using. So I guess I'll talk about the ones that you actually like have to have equipped, the ones that are mapped to the circle button. So I kept Garuda's aspect, I guess, Odin's aspect, and I believe Phoenix, because I really like the dash. But that one was the one, like, Garuda and Odin are locked in for me, personally. I don't think I would ever see myself using anything else. Phoenix's is interchangeable, because I tried Shiva's. Shiva's is super good, but the dodge timing is a little different, so it took a little bit for me to get used to, so I wound up not going with it. But I could see, because it freezes enemies for like 8 seconds or something crazy like that. So Shiva's is really good. Again, you've got the Titan block and whatever. But so the Phoenix one was interchangeable for me, but those two were definitely locked in. As for my build, basically what I wound up doing, and I'm sure a lot of people probably wound up doing this just because they saw how fucking powerful it was. I used Lightning Rod from Rama, and then basically used a bunch of abilities because basically Lightning Rod, it puts down this like diamond orb thing, and when you hit it, it pulses, and when enemies hit it, it pulses. So depending on how you set this thing up, it could do like it could wind up like double or even triple dipping, because what I wound up doing is stacking it with like Bahamut's Mega Flare. So Bahamut's Mega Flare is the big photon fuck beam that would just blast everything in front of you, and then you're double dipping with that. And if you had Ifrit's Will of the Wikes ability, which is the basically the shield of fireballs that are around you, if you were on top of the lightning rod, then you get into triple dipping territory, because not only is the Mega Flare proccing it, the Will of the Wikes are proccing it, and it got out of control really fast. And then obviously I kept Odin for Zentetsuken, and I didn't try his Dancing Steel ability, which is his ultimate one, which I believe is probably the best way to build up the Zentetsuken gauge, especially with the lightning rod, because it counted as an enemy. So every extra hit you would do would just build it up. So you would basically get a free level 5 Zentetsuken every time you did his ultimate ability with lightning rod out. So by the end of the game, my build basically boiled down to, I had a couple of things that I would do to do some extra damage during like outside of stagger windows. Like I kept the Titan Punch. I kept like Ignition from Ifrit and like a couple of other things. But when I hit my stagger windows, my goal was to do a crazy amount of damage with the Lightning Rod Mega Flare combo, and then if I could squeeze in a level 5 Zentetsuken right at the end. I think the highest I hit in the base game, I think I hit 140k stagger damage at one point. So, nice. But yeah, that wound up being my my build for the most part, and it was awesome. It felt really fun.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely did not take it that much in depth. I messed around with Garuda at the beginning just because that was the only one you really had. I tried Titans. I completely failed at the beginning with his because I didn't understand. Not that I understand. Well, slightly didn't understand his whole circle thing. Did you have to hit the red or the 2 yellows?
The red.
Okay, well, that's what I was thinking. So it took me a while because have been used to Garudas where you just hit it, or Phoenixes you just hit it and it goes off. But with Titan, you have to wait for it to come around. But his punches and shit were awesome.
Yeah.
I ended up just honestly sticking with it was Phoenix. Never tried Ifrit. Phoenix, Garuda, and then Titan. And then when Bahamut came around, I did his. Oh no, and Ramuh. So I always did Phoenix, Ramuh, and Bahamut. And I would always do obviously Giga Flare with Bahamut and his what is it? Impulse, I think.
Yep.
The thing that'll sit there and spin people up.
Yep.
That was ridiculous. So I just with Phoenix, dashed up there and would murder them and then slam them down. Ramuh, Judgment Bolt, just because it's awesome. And then I think I did Pile Drive.
And both of those abilities are still really good. Judgment Bolt does crazy damage, and then Pile Drive is just good because it's got a lower cooldown and it's good for just a nice fat slap of damage.
Yeah. And then for Phoenix, Rising Flame was kind of my single target one, and then I loved Flames of Rebirth. Whenever there's an AoE, if I got them relatively close, I just murder them.
That's the ultimate ability for Phoenix, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
that one was awesome. I did like Scarlet Cyclone though. That was pretty good, but I didn't really. I guess I haven't taken advantage of the whole going into the that your practice arena and just messing around. So I can only imagine people have already found just crazy combos and shit.
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah, I've looked at a couple of videos on how people are maximizing damage. It's pretty wild.
Yeah, but it honestly doesn't feel like you even have to. I know we've kind of talked about the difficulty, but like it doesn't feel like you know have to min max this to get to progress through some of the bosses. So I think that's a great thing. You can play with it however you want to, and I also didn't realize until I beat the game that you can move the abilities into whatever. You just have to take their aspect, right? So you can put like a red and a green one in, I think.
Trying to. You're talking about the mastering of the abilities, right?
Yeah, like once you master them, you can move them from like
Yes.
a green to a red or a red to a green.
Yes. Yeah, you
So
can. Yes, you could put basically like so. Like I mastered like the Titan Punch and like the Lightning Rod, right? So I could have that equipped to anybody. Yeah.
yeah, that is awesome. Um, but I want to try Odin's. Um, and I kind of want to get rid of Bahamut just because I do use the whole what is it, the circle ability. Like everybody has their own.
Yeah.
Obviously, Phoenix is I feel like one of the best, if not the best. Maybe if you could do it Garuda. Um, but just because of the whole dash, but like Bahamut's with the whole getting wings and unless you're just constantly dodging. I don't know. I haven't got to use it just because I feel like it's not very useful for me. So
I think it's an ability that's good, but it's unfortunately it's very niche because the only times you're really going to be able to use it, like okay, I guess I don't want to say like because I'm talking like from a min max standpoint, right? And you do not need to min max in this game, but to use it to the best of its ability, you would want to use it when you can't hit anything. It's like if the boss or the whatever you're attacking is like doing an attack where you cannot hit it, then you can pop into the Bahamut thing, dodge, and possibly get up to a level 5 Mega Flare, and then it does a lot of damage. Like if you get it up to level 5, it does a fucking crazy amount of damage, but it takes a lot of effort to get it to that point. And if you get hit, like you're wasting like a lot of time. Like you can get it, you can kind of recover it a little bit, but I found it to be a little clunky personally. Like I could do some good damage with it, but it just took way too much effort, and I didn't like just kind of just floating around, not doing anything for a good amount of time.
yeah, that's what I felt.
So,
but the whole Giga Flare shit, when they're in stagger and you just pop that bitch, oh my god, it feels so awesome.
yeah.
So, you know, what I was thinking about. I guess I didn't put two and two together. We never got Typhon. Like,
Yeah,
why didn't we get his
no
abilities?
Typhon, and I don't think Typhon is actually an icon. I think he's just a minion of Ultima. But there is another icon in the game that was not mentioned, and I know that they wanted to put it in the game, but they just wound up running out of time and resources. It was Leviathan. I'm pretty sure you hear Joshua mention him in a cutscene, actually.
Yep.
So that might wind up being a paid DLC thing, maybe down the line, which would be cool. I would really be very curious to see what they would do with Leviathan.
Yeah, that would be. I could only imagine how big it would be. I mean, just like Titan. So
yeah,
because it was a massive in 15. But yeah, I do like the whole customization that you can do once you master them. I'm not even remotely close to mastering all of them right now. So I'm not sure why you would need to, because you can just respec at whenever point you want to. But I don't know if it's hidden behind a trophy of mastering them all or not, but it's not really a point. So moving on to the next topic, which is a massive one, and we'll try not to spend too much time on it, but the music. I I don't know there's much more that can be said than it's just spectacular in this game. It's always great in every Final Fantasy game, the MMOs. It's just this one was on a completely different level. And at one point, I messaged you and I said, the music alone carries, and I'm not putting the rest of it in bad context, but this music just puts it on a whole new level and carries this game to a whole another like notch because of how good it was.
Yeah, Soken, the composer, is kind of a legend. I think I've had some conversations with some other people about this, and obviously, like, you know, the number one above him is still like Uematsu, the composer for like all the other Final Fantasy games and Chrono Trigger, and you know, all like some amazing, incredible work. Right now, I don't think Soken will ever surpass Uematsu. I don't think it's possible. But that being said, I do think that like after putting a lot of thought into it and hearing a lot of his work from Final Fantasy 14 and now 16, I think he will be able, if he's not already, he's able to be at Uematsu's level. I think that they are just about even. And I know he's had conversations with Uematsu, and I'm sure Uematsu is like, you know, like a direct inspiration for him. That like would not surprise me at all. In fact, Typhon's music, specifically the Phase 2 one, that kind of synth wave, like fucking like sick beat or whatever, that music is actually very Uematsu style, because Uematsu like to just like, you'd have like, you know, his epic choral stuff, and then you'd have like his good town music, and then every now and again he would just throw in like an absolute like fucking ultra banger like club music out of nowhere, right? And that theme actually reminds me of what's his fucking name in 10? Seymour, the final Seymour fight music.
Oh,
Which, I mean, I love that theme. That theme's great. So I think that song specifically, Typhon's Phase 2 song, is Soken's way of showing appreciation. Because that to me is a very Uematsu like track, and saying that is like probably one of the best compliments you can give a composer. So, but yeah, the music in the game, holy shit, it just like, and it's not just like the fight music, the zone music, like ambient little tracks that play like during cutscenes, like everything about the game's music is either good, great, or just absolutely stellar, like just astronomically good. I don't really know if there's like a bad track in the game. Like none pops out to me at all. So
yeah. It's phenomenal. I've been listening to the shit out of the playlist on Spotify. It's mainly got the main theme, like Through the Fire or whatever it is.
yep.
That one's just epic. Also, the Japanese song to end the game is really good.
Oh, the end credits one, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's nothing more than just this game. This music was just phenomenal throughout the entire game, the fights and shit like that, just in the zones. I really do love how they've come up where you could just go from a zone into a fight, it changes music and it'll come right back out. So,
And it felt seamless too. It didn't really feel like it was interrupting.
yes. Okay, so this probably these next two are going to be the two biggest. So we'll talk about the story. And you'll probably be better about this than I, because it did get a little confusing to me. But I'll just go ahead and say the whole game had 11 hours of cutscenes.
Yep, it sure did.
So that was like in-game cutscenes, and then like a CGI. And honestly, the in-game cutscenes were just as good as the CGI cutscenes. It was phenomenal. So, but if you're not a fan of that amount of cutscenes in any type of game, I understand. But it is also what made the story just that much better, I believe, because of the cutscenes and the voice acting and stuff. Some of the animations, I will say, in like just in-game cutscenes, their expressions were just a little off, but it wasn't something that I would bring it down to like, oh my god, this is horrible.
Yeah.
So, but I know that, just that little lacking part was probably due to the amount of work that was going into the entirety of the game itself. So, if that's just a little gripe about it, I can definitely let that pass. So, do you want to give an overview of the whole of this story? Obviously, I can just go ahead and start out. Clive, he's got a little brother, Joshua. His family, the Rossfields, were blessed to have the icon of Phoenix, and it was only to be believed that there would be only one element in each family, and he was the element of fire. So, you can go now. You're much better at this than I.
Yeah. So there was only believed to be one icon of fire. Turns out there isn't, and then obviously that's a very confusing point for a lot of people. But I can't go over like the entirety of the story. There's just no way. So I'm gonna have to skip quite a few things here. But it essentially boiled down to this god being, Ultima, granted humanity all of these gifts, like magic, icons, the dominance, all of it. He's responsible for all of it, and essentially all he wanted was for humanity to just be drones and just essentially carry on his boring world for the most part. But humanity developed free will and did their own thing, and he didn't like that very much. So, I believe that this is when Ifrit came into play, and why Clive was made, because he wanted somebody to take the power of all of the icons and essentially become a vessel for Ultima, so he could just wipe out literally everything. So that's the gist, but there's infinitely more to it, and I'm sure there's a couple of things that I might even be like, not understanding properly, but that's what I got from it.
Yeah, I mean, unless you just have watched just countless amount of videos and just paid attention perfectly to every single dialogue, you wouldn't be able to, give this full length story of it all and stuff. So, but yeah, it's awesome that Clive, he's such a great character, I believe, just because of where he comes from and where he ends up and stuff. Because I'd say the first part of the whole game is him trying to figure out who killed his brother and stuff. And then it's him, but he's being essentially kind of used by Ultima and stuff. So,
yep.
Which is great. Overall, do you think it was a good story, though?
I do. The ending hit me really, really, really hard, because I'm kind of a sucker for happy endings. So whenever shit's not happy, it hurts a lot, and the ending hurt a lot. That being said, I've kind of put a lot of thought into it, and I actually feel like that they left this ending ambiguous. I actually feel like it's a pretty ambiguous ending because you could honestly make your own story from the ending, and because it's an ambiguous ending, who's going to disprove you? Like, the only obvious things you know of is Dion fell after the Ultima fight, but there's no body, so there's
He also
that.
fell when he,
Yeah.
So
Yep. Also, yep. So who knows? Joshua, you could say he's dead, but you have to keep in mind he is the Phoenix, and while they said he can't specifically revive the dead, nothing's ever said about himself being able to res himself. So, and I know he gave Clive a good chunk of the power, but I don't think you're able to just give up the entirety of the dominant. I don't think that's how that works. Could be wrong on that, but still. I think it's, and Clive could have even gotten most of the strength, and because he's, ultra powerful, blessed with like all the icons, maybe he could have rezzed him at the end, and we just don't know. Obviously, Clive returns all of the aether that had been sucked into that one spot to the planet and sacrificed himself, quote unquote. And all you see is him laying on that beach at the end. And yes, his hand is turned to stone and he passes out and then it fades to black. But who knows? Did he die? Did he pass out? Like, it's up to you. You know what I mean? So my perfect ending is nobody dies. Everybody's happily ever after. Clive loses his hand, obviously, because you see that his hand turned to stone, and unless that they found a way to cure it, that his hand is gone. Joshua survives and writes the book, because you see that at the very end of the with the kids playing with like the dog named Bahamut and all that shit. So Joshua survives and writes the book, and Dion especially survives, goes and finds Terrence, and they adopt that little girl who kept Dion alive, and they live happily ever after. That's my ending. And nobody can disprove my ending because it's ambiguous.
True.
So,
true.
But regardless, overall, the story was fantastic. It was told very well. I'm trying to think if there's any plot holes that kind of like, there might be some, but nothing glaring that I noticed personally. I'm sure if I like went back through and combed every little section, I could probably find a couple of things here and there, but yeah, I can't really think of any like major faults that ruined the story for me. I enjoyed it from start to finish.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Great storytelling, great writing. This is what a Final Fantasy game needs to be. So, moving on to the big bad. If you are just playing the game, at the beginning, it just feels like war, essentially. But then there's an underlying person, and it being Ultima. How we feeling about Ultima as the big bad, and just him in general?
I think Ultima is just kind of like your classic like Final Fantasy trope villain, where it's a god and the god wants to do bad shit and you must kill God. That's they've done it a lot, and it works. It's fine because then they do have ways of like mixing it up to make it so it's not like literally the same fucking plot, copy and pasted over and over again. And I think Ultima was cool. I think and the payout for him at the end with his fight was truly a spectacle and very amazing. I do have one complaint about his fight, just one. I sincerely wish that for the first phase of the fight, where it's Ifrit, Phoenix, and Bahamut all fighting the Shadow Ifrit. I really wish that they would have let you jump between controlling all three of them, and it would have been like not because that fight is one big cutscene, like truly, because there's only like 4 QTEs and like the whole thing. Now, it's fine because I can live with it. It's just it's a cool cutscene, had great music going behind it, and the fight was awesome. But personally, I would have liked to have been able to control Ifrit, Phoenix, and especially Bahamut. That would have blown my fucking mind away. And then, like, especially if there was more of an interaction required to do the try disaster attack that they do toward the end, like right at the end of that. I mean, again, amazing looking, like really fucking the try disaster thing. I was like, holy shit! We're bringing in like triple tech attacks from Chrono Trigger. Like, this is awesome. So, but besides that, Ultima's fight was good. Was either because like the next phase, it's just you versus him, and it's great. And then after that, you fight Shadow Ifrit in space, which is just like, actually, it's not even space. It's like some fuck off dimension with like, crazy shit happening in the background. I don't even know, but it was amazing. And then it boils down to just you versus him at the end with like Clive's epic theme going, and I don't know how I feel about the goofy punch at the end for like
where it's slow-mo.
and it's like and then you punch him for 99999 damage or whatever. Like, it's cool. I feel like they took like a note from like Jack from the what's the Chaos game? The hell's the name of the game?
Oh, Stranger of Paradise.
Strangers of Paradise. I think that's just like a little nod they took from him, just punching the god at the end. But you know what? Fuck it, dude. I don't care. It's awesome. But Ultima as a whole was cool in my opinion. He felt pretty sinister every time he was on screen. I don't know if he like necessarily had like a commanding presence on screen, but whenever he was around, you kind of felt uncertain of what was going to happen. And I think that's a good thing to have about a villain, because it's like, oh shit, like is he going to kill somebody, or is some like bad shit going to happen, or yada yada yada. So I think they did good. There's room for improvement, but I think they did really good with Ultima, personally.
Yeah, for sure. His fight was pretty awesome. I mean, we're a couple of things away from talking about one of the better ones, and it's very hard to top that. But as far as the ending goes, obviously it feels like when they have an ending boss fight, it always goes into multiple phases and stuff, and none of them were like super lacking or anything like that, so they were all above like average, but some of the things that happened in them was like they were peaking and stuff. So yeah, he was a good villain. I wouldn't say he was one of the, it's hard to rank obviously all of them like from Final Fantasy wise, if you just haven't played all the Final Fantasy games, or just even the ones that we have played, it would be hard to rank. But maybe in the top half, maybe in the middle of where he'd be like, remembered as. So
yeah, I can't really rank him right now. I have to put a lot more thought into it, and a lot more thought into the other games that I played. So
yeah, I know we do. I do want to do like an actual Final Fantasy series episode, like between you, me, QE, and maybe Rack, in just ranking some of them. But overall, he was good. So, next one, how long did it take you to beat the base game?
50 hours on the dot for me. And that's doing all the side quests, all the hunts. The only thing I skipped the Chronolith trials, because I figured that they were going to be harder on the New Game Plus anyway, so I might as well do them when they're at their most challenging and not do them again. So, like, not do like an easier version of them and then have to do like a harder version again. Like, I'd rather just do like the harder version, and obviously I'd rather not have the content of them. Like, I don't want to know what's coming in the harder version to keep it as much of a challenge as possible. So,
Yeah.
So I didn't do the Chronolith trials. I think that's it. I think the only thing I skipped down were the Chronolith trials.
Yeah.
So had I done those, because there's one for each icon, right?
I think so.
So that probably would have added like another, like maybe 2 or 3 hours or so, maybe depending on how hard some of them are. I tried one of them. I think I tried the Garuda one, I'm pretty sure. And I almost got it on my first try. And so they're definitely challenging for sure. But I think with just, with good play, I would have been able to get it, obviously. But yeah. So yeah, 50 hours on the dot for me.
Nice. It's pretty good for just a RPG game. So I think it was like 48 for me, and I did the same thing as you. Didn't do the Chronoliths. I tried the Garuda one as well, and I wasn't prepared for that because it had been a long time since I've been using or even tried Garuda, and to only have I think 2 of her abilities was a little challenging. So, but yeah, I'm sure it can be conquered just by getting used to the abilities that they give you and stuff. So I definitely want to try them when I do get to that point on New Game Plus, which I'm sure will be, at the end. So
yeah.
But that's pretty awesome. Okay, so this one is going to be fairly hard, and we don't have to like take it too far in depth right now, just because I'm sure it's hard to do this. But where are you putting this on a Final Fantasy list? I'd say just either do top half or bottom half of all the ones that you've played.
Definitely top half. For me personally, like 10 was the GOAT before this one. Like 10 was just like don't get me wrong, like I love 7. 7's great. I still think 10 is a superior game to 7. And this is including the 7 remake, which I also really liked. But this game, it might wind up being the best, but I can't rank it quite yet. So
yeah,
but sure. Absolutely in the top half for sure.
I can definitely agree with that. So we'll see where it ends up. Just when maybe the next few come out. Obviously, we got Rebirth coming out for Final Fantasy VII.
Yep.
So it's definitely in the top half. It's an awesome game. So next question is it's definitely one of the ones that were most controversial the entire time. Before it came out and even after it came out, was this the right Final Fantasy? Like overall type, with the combat, the story, music, and everything like that. Was this the right one to come back and to put it on a better track?
I think it's an extraordinarily difficult thing to answer because the right Final Fantasy for people is going to be the one that they played when they were a kid. I really think like, and
yeah.
Like they can say like no Final Fantasy is good. No. It's like Final Fantasy to you, and this me, you, anybody is going to be the one you played as a kid. And the first one I ever played, funny enough, was 10. So, and I played that when I was I don't even remember how young. Pretty young. And that game blew me the fuck away. Like holy shit. 10 is amazing. I played 7 a little later on because that's when I started getting into Final Fantasy, and and then I played 10-2, but I mainly played it with a friend, so we kind of went like back and forth. So I guess I didn't really like play it entirely for myself or whatever. But regardless, like I think the important thing is like does this I think it's a better question to ask is just is this like is it a good game? Because when you start getting into like the weeds of like is it a good Final Fantasy, then you have to start like splitting hairs, right? Because then you start to factor in like was Final Fantasy 15 the right Final Fantasy? And a lot of people did not really care for that because it was like, a fucking boy band pushing a fucking car around, in the beginning of the game. So people got turned off by that pretty fast. And then you look at Final Fantasy 13, which is for the most part on rails. You look at Final Fantasy 12, which is, I believe that's when it first deviated from turn-based. Because I'm not counting the MMOs, because the MMOs it's way too hard to rank the MMOs with the single-player games. I can't do that.
Yeah. No, yeah, 12 was definitely where they actually allowed you to really move around and stuff. But the problem with that game is you can act, like I said, in our first part with the super boss or whatever, with the gambit system, you can literally set it up and the game will play itself. So that was definitely one of the biggest things about that combat system, but that was definitely one where it really started of kind of an action feel of being able to move around and stuff. So
yeah, but Jesse Cox actually did like a really, really good video on this topic that I think you should watch.
I think I watched it. I think Asman reviewed it.
Oh, the not my Final Fantasy thing or whatever.
Yes, yeah, I watched that one.
Yes. Yep. His video essentially sums up my thoughts on it entirely. Like, and I don't want to just dismiss people who are criticizing the game, because I think it's extraordinarily important to be able to criticize stuff, whether it's good, bad, it doesn't matter. Like, especially important to criticize it if it's good, because you criticize it when it's good, this means that future iterations of it are going to just be better. So I don't want to just dismiss people's criticisms. What I do want to not dismiss, but have people try to change their thought process on is like, calling the game a not Final Fantasy game is kind of insulting, because you're insulting like a good chunk of people who think this is a Final Fantasy game. This could be some people's first Final Fantasy game, and
yeah.
And this is what this is now their legacy for the series of games from now until they die. So I just think when you put it in like this weird bucket of like, oh, this is what Final Fantasy is, I just don't think that's the right way to go about it. I think you need to keep a bit more of an open mind, and it's totally fine. It's totally fine to just not like the game because it doesn't feel like what you think Final Fantasy is, and that's fine. Now, I don't think you should just outright call it a bad game because of that. I think calling it a bad game because of that is not really fair, personally. But if someone says, look, I think 16 looks really cool, it's just not Final Fantasy to me, because like Final Fantasy to me is like Final Fantasy 3 or 6 or 5 or 8 or 7 or who knows. Like there's a whole bunch of fucking games in this series that people could have started out with, you know what I mean? So I would just try to tell people to be a bit more open about it and just understand that while it may not be Final Fantasy for you, it most certainly is Final Fantasy for somebody else.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. I mean, Final Fantasy games have always just been these just great stories. A pretty good villain, some iconic villains just in their series, if not in all of games. So, and then their combat has evolved every single game, whether we want to admit it or not. and like we can never go back to turn based. We're just in a state in today's age that we can't do that. And I think they have been evolving since 10 to do that. So I think this was one to that'll be remembered, to where it's like some people have said that it fell off a little bit, with 13, same with 15, and I think people will remember this one as kind of, keeping the core of Final Fantasy, but also almost innovating enough in most people's eyes. Because obviously you're gonna have the haters that just like, I only see red. This is what it has to be. It can never be a different color on the rainbow and shit like that. So I have to stick with that. But you can't go by what those people are saying just because. I think they did a phenomenal job with this. It lived up to the hype that I built for myself. So, it was awesome. So we got like 4 more topics. You think we can rattle them off to finish
Yeah,
it?
I think so.
Okay.
I think we can do it.
So moving into the best fight. Obviously, we've already talked about Ultimas, and we can kind of agree it wasn't the best one. So just go ahead and say yours. I'm sure it's going to be the same as mine. So
Bahamut.
Yeah, I mean that. Holy shit, Bahamut has always been an icon in the Final Fantasy series. Usually, when you fight him, if you do get to fight him, it's epic. 10, it was great. And then for 16, it was just nothing less of immaculate. From the music, the overall combat, just see everything. It was phenomenal.
There's a reason why Bahamut is the king of dragons.
Yes,
and they really showed it in this one.
Second though to it, I really liked Odin's, because it was one of the only ones that were really, like, you did get to fight. Obviously Garuda, she wasn't very tough, and that's understandable. Titans, his 1-on-1 before he primed and shit was fun. He gave me a little bit of challenge at the beginning because all it he was just in a rage. But Odin's was, like you said, was like a duel. You didn't really get to fight the icon version of him, but the duel between him and Clive in their human forms and shit was awesome.
No, I really enjoyed it. I think it might be disappointing to some people because it's like, you're going
from Bahamut.
You're going from Bahamut to that. And, when you just compare those, it's hard, but I just have to kind of look at it just in like a separate thing, right? And how I worded it, how Bahamut is this grand fucking spectacle. I mean, Bahamut could have been the last boss of the fucking game. I mean, Jesus Christ. But then you've got the fight with Barnabas / Odin, and that's just kind of how Barnabas's character is. I don't really think he does things in like a grand spectacle. Like even when you saw him in the cutscenes with Odin, like he basically shows up, does gigantic fucking slashes, and that's basically it. And it's cool, but he doesn't really but when Bahamut's on screen, there's fucking lasers and explosions and he's fucking all over the place. So I think it matches the character like really well. Like the fights match the characters really well, in my opinion.
Yeah.
100%. And that's what I think they did a good job with.
Yes. Typhon's was actually pretty neat, and I think I died one time because I didn't understand his wall ability. Well, I didn't understand his wall ability. I just was pretty slow at it at the beginning, so I actually ran into it and it killed me. But his was neat too. I think Garuda's was just the weakest, but that's understandable because she was the first. Now her like model and just that evil laugh, holy shit, it was pretty cool.
I enjoyed all the icon fights. Are honestly are pretty solid. Like, but Bahamut is the best, hands down, no questions asked for me. And then it's Titan because Titan,
that was
the fucking music and like just dude, the fact that they made like Titan like absolutely fucking massive, like literally like two mountains put together, like holy shit. And then after that, it'll probably be like Ultima for me, and then Odin, and then Typhon, and then Garuda.
Yeah.
And I guess you have to factor in Ifrit's as well. Ifrit's probably above Typhon actually. So Ifrit, and then Typhon, and then Garuda.
Yeah.
Because the fight with Ifrit was awesome because it's like, Clive finally accepting the truth, and you got the badass music going and all that shit. So
yeah. Okay, so the last few ones, some critiques and changes that we would think of.
So, number one, please, if you guys are going to do a game similar to this one again, please pace the side quests better. Good God. Like, I love the side quests. They're great. I enjoyed nearly every single one to the fullest. Like, there were some that were, were kind of whatever, but for the most part, the side quests were great. Just please don't have like 15 of them pop up at the very fucking end of the game. Like, please don't do that. It was because like it didn't kill it for me, but it stole a little bit of the thunder because it's like, you have
the story's ramping up, and then you're just like, damn.
You have that whole scene where like Ultima's like weird fucking like thing in the air forms, and everyone's looking at it, and then then everyone's like, all right, well, let's take a second to calm down and figure out what we can do, and then all those fucking side quests open up, and it's like, and they do that twice. Like that happens twice toward like at one point it's like 8, and then another time, and then at the very fucking end, right before the final showdown, it's fucking like 15 side quests.
Yeah.
So just pop those into some better positions, and we'll be good. The gearing system could use work. I definitely think that there's a lot more that they could do with it, specifically for weapons and the belts and the bracers. That those could definitely have had fixes attached to them, and I think the accessories could have even been better. So definitely improve on that. I think the balancing of some of the icon abilities is off. I think there's some that are just like really fucking lackluster. Like Bahamut's satellite ability, like it does good stagger damage, but it's only if you're going to be good at the magic burst and nothing else. So, and that's you're only really doing magic burst when you're not doing anything else, right? And toward the end of the game, for the most part, you're kind of just cycling through icon abilities like left and right. There's like very little downtime on icon abilities. So, I mean, especially in New Game Plus, right? Because I'm pretty sure since you can combine them, you start to like reduce the cooldowns of stuff even more. So, definitely a bit more balancing for icon abilities to make some a little more desirable than others. Because like, I mean, you have to like compare it like the Titan punch versus like, like Shiva's like little like rhyme ability that you put down, like the little ice circle thing. It's just, dude, it's just like, what are you gonna take? The Titan punch is so much better. It's got a lower cooldown, does way more fucking damage, So, and it's difficult, right? It's difficult to balance that shit. So I get it, but a bit more balancing in that regard. Trying to think if there's like anything else. It's not really a critique. This isn't a critique. This is just an addition I would like to see to the game. Or even if they're not going to do Final Fantasy 16 again, or like 16-2, if they do like a similar combat system like this one, right? Or like with the icons or something like that, even if it's a completely separate game, I would like to see more weapons. So, like, I talked to Kiwi a little bit about this. So, like, let's say you have Titan's Punch, right? Now, baseline, it's just the punch. But then let's say Clive were to equip like a big, like, two-handed axe. Well, now let's say what if you, like, when you have a two-handed axe equipped, well, now it imbues the two-handed axe with, like, rocks. It makes it do, like, extra will and extra damage in general. And then, like,
That'd be cool.
if you have like a two-handed sword with like Ifrit's ignition ability, maybe instead of just doing like the thing where it like the ignition ability, right? How it like you kind of like grab shit and like boost forward for a little bit, and you can like scoop up enemies and it'll take damage on them. Yeah. So if you have a two-handed sword with that equipped, let's just say it does just like one big dash with it, but it does like a lot of fucking damage. And the more enemies you pierce, the more damage it does, or just something. I'm just spitballing ideas, but you see what I'm getting at. Like,
yeah, for sure.
More weapons, and then the iconic abilities interact with the weapons in one way or another. So again, not a critique, but something I would like to see for the future. I would like to see a super boss added. I can factor this in as a critique. The game personally felt a little too easy for me. I only really died like twice, I think. So, and the icon fights, like, while they're truly a spectacle and something to witness, I never really felt in danger while I was fighting the icons. And I think if you would have added this element of, okay, you actually have to like play properly or you could die in these, would have added to the intensity and made it much better. Now maybe on New Game Plus it's like that. I haven't done like Bahamut or Ultima or anything like that on NG Plus, so I don't know. Maybe they're like that, but I don't know. I doubt it, but we'll see. But regardless, I would have liked a bit more of a challenge for me personally. Now, I get what they were going for, trying to, appeal to a super wide audience. So they probably toned the difficulty down in general, just to make people be able to experience a story. And that's fine. It's not really a massive deal to me. I'm not going to cry about it. But I think if they're going to do that, I would have liked to have seen the addition of some super bosses and maybe some more chronolet trials and, just a few more like really, really difficult things to do. And they don't even have to give rewards necessarily, just something to do for like the glory. You know what I mean? And I think that's about it for me personally. Can't really think of anything else off the top of my head.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely agree with all those. The side quest is one of my biggest gripes because I think that slowed down some of the pacing issues for just people in general who see something, I don't know the word, but whenever they see something that is just not cleared, they're like, holy shit, I got to do this. So in those 2 points that you were talking about at the end of the game, we're just like building up this whole Ultima thing, and it's like, I got to do a side quest, bro. Jesus Christ. And that's not knocking. I'm glad that y'all put that many side quests into this game and much thought. Obviously, some of them are just rinse and repeat and stuff, but the stories that connected the whole story was wonderful. So do that, but find different places to place them. Some of the exploration, holy shit! Whenever I finally got the Chocobo, it was wonderful. I don't know why it felt like it took that long. I'm sure it's not going to in New Game Plus because I'm skipping cutscenes and shit, but just running around and it taking forever for Clive to get his little burst going. I need more. And then I'm also for the Chocobo, like it's just the point of the Chocobo. I feel like in most Final Fantasy games, you can go to like unexplored areas. I want to be able to jump on water and go behind little hidden things because this is a massive ass bird. It can semi-fly or glide really. So I want to explore more with the Chocobo. Um, I do agree about the weapons and all that shit. And definitely felt like they put a lot more thought into the accessories, which is fine because they do the abilities. But for me, I'm literally slapping on like the Genji gloves, which does a flat percentage on them. I don't really care. I at the beginning when I didn't have those gloves, I was putting like the 10% increased damage on like the Rising Flames ability, which is cool, but you didn't really feel it. So, um, all the hunts were pretty cool. I wish they were definitely paced out a little bit better, like we talked about in our first part. Because like doing a B one and then also an S one when you were early on, and then you unlock more S's when you were basically capped out in the base game, so they weren't too difficult. Obviously, Behemoth King, he was epic, but by the time I made to him, he wasn't difficult by any means.
Yeah.
And I the difficulty thing is very hard for a Final Fantasy game, I believe, just because of all the accessible things that we have. In this one, we don't have necessarily magic like a cure. Obviously, some of the abilities like the Phoenix one where you that I was talking about, the flames thing, it heals some. I think Bahamut's Giga Flare maybe does as well. I think obviously your Fury it heals, but whenever I did some of them, like the flames ability, you're just sitting there flaming people. You can switch over from Torgal to your potions and hit a high potion right quick. So, that was one thing that was I found interesting, that they couldn't like it didn't stop me from doing that, because it's like, man, I basically get a pause button like I would back in the day on turn bases to hit potion while nobody's attacking me. So I think that's one of the hardest things that they're gonna have to figure out. Maybe not have to figure out, but to figure out is the whole difficulty thing for people like you and me. So, well, yeah, it was good. It was great. It was in the right direction. So, last couple things, I think we've kind of covered our final thoughts on the game. So, uh, grade wise, what were we feeling on 1 to a 10?
Easy
After
10.
Okay,
Easy 10. Despite all the critiques and everything, the game is. I rarely do games make me speechless, and I was rendered speechless quite a few times in this one. Like, I mean, to compare it, I think it happened in God of War Ragnarok twice, and in 16, I think it happened at least like 6.
Yeah,
and God of War Ragnarok was another game that I gave a 10 out of 10. Now maybe I hand them out a little too easily, and I'm entertained easily, but fuck it, who cares? But yeah, 10 out of 10 for me.
Yeah, I mean, easy 10. It fulfilled everything I asked for a Final Fantasy game, if not more. So, and even still playing in New Game Plus, the fights I've already seen them, and it's just like it's still there. So there was just so many epic moments. I think even in any of the critiques that we've given it, it's just like some parts just completely blow them out of the water, that it just like brings those critiques down enough where you don't even factor them into a grading scale. So, okay, so I think that is all on our list. Any final thoughts? The game? Anybody need to play it? Just everything.
I don't think so. I think all that can be said has been said for me. Game's fucking amazing. It was well worth the wait, and well worth the PS5 purchase. Even though I got the PS5 for a couple of things, but still. Yep. God bless the team, and I look forward to seeing more. Hopefully, if they, if we get DLC, or if they let them handle the Final Fantasy single players from now on. As much as I love Nomura's wild ride with with the shit he's doing with Final Fantasy VII Remake, I don't know if he should be allowed to handle a mainline Final Fantasy game because he's fucking nuts. But regardless, I think the future of Final Fantasy is in pretty good hands, and I think we'll be eating good for a while at least.
Yes, sir. In Yoshi P, we trust. Game's awesome. If you ain't got a PS5, go purchase one. Play it. Play God of War.
Or steal one.
But this one.
Steal it from your friend. Who cares?
Yep. They don't need it right now. Play it. So we're going to end it there. Thank you again for another wonderful review. I don't know any other games that we can review this year, but if there are, we'll find them. But it's been awesome. And thank you again for joining us on another wonderful episode of the Believe Me You Don't podcast. And remember, you can continue
to believe us
if you
do not.
Goodbye.